Hey everybody, it's Chris here from Bow River Troutfitters. Today I'm going to tie for you a classic stimulator, but we're going to add rubber legs and flash, make it a little fancier dress. So I like a curved hook here. We're going to just wrap it in thread. We're going to go past the curve of the hook to basically where the barb ends. That's a good starting point. Now we're going to tie in our deer hair for the tail, and when we tie in the deer hair here, not too long. We don't want to have too long a tail, but I'm also going to wrap it a little bit tighter right off the bat. You'll notice the deer hair spins around the hook a little bit more. I like my tails on stimulators to kind of wrap around the hook shank. I'm then going to loosely wrap the rest of that up almost to, I don't know, a third of the way towards the eye. And that way we're just going to create that body. When I go back with the thread, I'm going to wrap it a little bit tighter. And you can see now we get this really buoyant, nice, chunky profile for the body. Next thing we're going to tie in is our wire to hold the hackle, and I'm going with a super fine wire. Remember, these flies are supposed to float, so let's help it out and use as light a wire as we can. In this case, nothing very visible, just black. Time for dubbing. I really like super fine dubbing. Any sort of finer dubbing will work great, but we generally don't want too many hairs. We want this to be a very kind of smooth body, not too buggy. The hackle is going to take care of that. And as you can see, I'm using a yellow dubbing here. You can feel free to make a contrasting color combination between the head and the body, or make them the same. Stimulators are all about having fun with the color combos. So now we're going to tie in a ginger hackle in this case. I'm just tying it in so I can wrap it back down the body, and I want it to be a little bit smaller than the actual hook gape. So I've tied it back. Now I've got my wire moving forward. It's going to lock that hackle in place in the opposite direction. Try not to crush too many fibers. Wrap the wire well and lock it in place. So now we've cut that off, and it's time to put on our wing. Now what we're going to do in this particular case is do a two-part wing. So I'm going to go ahead and use some lighter blonde elk hair or deer hair here, but I'm only using half what I would normally use. And notice that I'm going to do softer, looser wraps so that it doesn't twist along the hook. I'm also holding it tight with my fingers. I want to lock this in place, but I don't want it to twist. I want to have that nice high profile. I'm then going to do some wraps to lock in the rest of the fibers there and create a sort of head. But word to the wise here, don't cover over the eye of the hook like I did here. Do as I say, not as I do, because otherwise you have to clean it up and it's going to make a little bit of a mess. So I've only put in half the hair I would normally do for the wing. That's because we're now going to put a dark deer hair or elk hair on top. And again, I'm going to tie that on top. It's going to give some contrast, makes it look a little bit more visible on the water. I like that. And again, we get that buoyancy. Wrap it down as well, continuing to make the taper for that head. We want a nice cone shape, as you can see here. Again, don't get too close to the eye of the hook, because this cone shape is going to give us the profile that we're going to then put our dubbing and our hackle on to create our head of this particular stimulator. There, all nice and clean, ready for the next step. Now, a classic stimulator, you would just tie in another hackle over the head and you'd be done with it. But we're going to add a little bit extra here. I'm going to put some flash in. You can use whatever you like, whatever color, just to give it a little bit of flash and a little bit of sparkle in the wing. Then I'm going to tie in some barred rubber legs. This is a very classic olive brown kind of rubber leg, but I actually really like MFC's Sexy Floss. I feel it's a little bit more supple, has a little bit more movement, and you can get a barred Sexy Floss, which has that variegated look. Now I'm going to tie in a Grisly colored hackle, and again, this is actually going to be a little bit thicker, a little bit longer hackle fiber than what we tied in the body. Doesn't matter what color combo you use, but make the head a little bit of a longer hackle feather. Now before we do that, we're going to put in some dubbing. Here I'm going with purple. Again, have fun with this. You know, stimulators aren't necessarily meant to mimic any particular bug. They can be an attractor pattern, but you can certainly tie these as a hopper representation or as a squalor representation or even a green drake. So feel free to tie it with whatever colors you like. There we go. We've wrapped the Grisly hackle, we've whip finished it, and there's our classic stimulator. Again, it's a great fly that can represent many different bugs. They're buoyant, they're great for hopper-dropper rigs, and I feel that they get a bad rap now that foam has become so prevalent. But really, these are buoyant, they're fun to fish, and they do work very effectively. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. Check out our YouTube channel for all the rest of our fly tying videos. Thanks so much for joining me today.